Welcome back to another episode of SJHL Insider across Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or on YouTube. Hello, everyone, and I hope you're all enjoying the 2023 SJHL playoffs presented by UPL. I know here at SJHL Master Controls, we're definitely enjoying it. It's a lot of miles on the road, but a lot of fun so far in the SJHL playoffs, which of course is sponsored by UPL. But also we got to give a big shout out to all of our other sponsors for all their great support throughout the show, throughout the season, to help us put on these shows. Canterra Seed, SaskTel, Capital Auto Mall, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, who presented all of our coaches' conversations throughout the season. Chevrolet, Tourism Saskatchewan, Direct West, SGI, SGU, Great Western, Young's Equipment, RBC. Thank you so much for your support, because without the support, this show would not be possible, and SJHL Weekly and all the other things we do here at SJHL Master Control. On the show today, we are recapping games 3 and 4 of all 4 first-round series. Lots to get into. We'll also have a chat, which is presented by Federated Co-op, another great sponsor of the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, with official Alex Clarke. Great catch up with Alex, and boy, oh boy, Alex has a lot of experience when it comes to officiating at so many different levels. Big part of the SJHL, but pretty much every league in Saskatchewan and also internationally as well. And then, of course, we're also going to preview Game 5 and some Game 6s that we already know about, but all 4 Game 5s, which are set for Friday, a couple of the Game 6s, and maybe we'll have more Game 6s. All TBD going into this weekend. So a busy episode on SJHL Insider as we bring in Clarke Munroe, our co-host Clarke. Pretty busy first week, I'd say.
Oh man, it's been awesome, hasn't it? Though
it's been good.
The fact that we're sitting here today with 4 Game 5s on the way, it's so good for the league. It goes to show what we've been talking about all year, that there's a ton of parity in this league, and that any team on any given night can take a W from anyone. Right. And we saw it in the first couple of games of the series with Weyburn getting one in Battlefords, and it just continued on from there. It's been a really exciting 4 games so far.
Yeah, I was saying it last night while I was in Estevan for Game 4 between the Bruins and the Bombers. It was pretty cool to see going into last night's action, all 4 series being at 2-1.
Yeah.
And you didn't have anybody facing elimination yet, and as a result, we're guaranteed all 4 series are at least going to Game 5 tomorrow night, Friday night, across the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. Of course, the SJHL playoffs presented by UPL. But usually this is where we do the hat trick.
Yes.
Right? But here's the thing. There's 4 series.
Yeah, we can't do a 4-goal hat trick.
Does anybody, maybe you could comment once you post it, tweet us, tweet at my handle, the SJHL handle, Clark's handle. Is there an actual term for 4 goals in hockey?
In hockey specifically, because I think, like I was saying, I think if you strike out 4 times in baseball, I feel like it's called the golden sombrero.
And if you get 4 strikes in bowling, it's called a ham bone.
Ham bone. You know what? They have some weird names in bowling. Like, who came up with these names?
We're getting off topic, but yeah. Anyways.
I think this is going to turn into a bowling show.
Anyway, yeah. Once the off season, that's what it'll turn into.
SJHL bowling show.
No, bowling insiders. Okay, so we're going to run through all 4 playoff series and games 3 and 4 specifically, because we recapped obviously game 1 and 2 on SJHL Weekly. So let's start. We'll just work our way from the top and work our way down. And let's start with Battlefords and Weyburn. Of course, Weyburn opened the series with a victory on the road. They stole home ice advantage. But I think the big thing that they ran into a little bit of problem at the CPP when taking on the North Stars in game 3 and 4 is they couldn't find the back of the net. They only beat Josh Cote once, losing 3-0 on Tuesday and then 6-1 Wednesday. Now the North Stars have a chance to close it out Friday night.
Yeah. Tuesday, I was lucky enough to be there with you, and it was a very intense game. Like, you could tell the crowd was on the edge of their seat the whole night. Great crowd. And, it was tight, 0-0 after 1. Yep. Going into the second period, I think Battleford's got the 1 in the second period, so it was 1-0 going into the third. And you could just tell that every single shot, every pass, people were on the edge of their seat, and it was you never knew, you couldn't tell how it was going to go, because Weyburn was keeping it close. Battleford's though was peppering Dazza Mitchell that night.
Oh yeah, 20 shots in the first period alone.
Exactly. And shout out to Dazza Mitchell, great performance on Tuesday night. And the problem is, Jeromy, at the end of the day, special teams kind of played the difference in that game in the sense that Weyburn had 6 power plays. They couldn't score on any of them. And Battleford's, also had, it was an even 6-6.
100%.
And they scored a power play goal.
Yeah.
And, really, that third goal, it's a 3-0 game, but it was a 2-0 game all the way.
The third goal was an empty netter.
Yeah, it was an empty netter. So it was a great game on Tuesday specifically. And it was a really interesting finish, obviously, with all the shenaniganery that went on.
Yeah.
But here nor there, it was a good hockey game on Tuesday night. And
yeah, I think my thoughts, I guess, on that game on Tuesday is, if it wasn't for Daz and Mitchell in that first half of that game could have been out of hand for Weyburn early on. Yeah. Very early on, because Battleford came out and they were definitely buzzing. Yeah. With that being said, even though Weyburn was down 2-0 in the third period, you touched on it. It's not like they didn't have their chances to score. They had some good looks. They had a 5-on-3 for about a minute and a half. Couldn't find the back of the net. Yeah, and they could have got to within one. Heck, on a 5-on-3 for a minute and a half, if you score in the first minute and a half, you still have a power, then a 5-on-4. Yeah. You could have tied the game.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like we saw their power play do so well in the first 2 games. And then it went dry on Tuesday and Wednesday. And that's where, obviously, they needed it, And you know what? I don't want to say it's all, Weyburn just not scoring on the power play. Kudos to Battleford. They obviously made some adjustments on their penalty kill, and obviously it paid off. And and you know what? Usually they say your best penalty killer is your goaltender, and Josh Cote allowed 1 goal in 2 games.
Josh Cote was, and that was what I was going to get at too with Weyburn's power plays. We were sitting behind the net for that period, and they did have those, what was it, 3 or 4 power plays in the third.
Correct.
And it seemed like you said, they got some good looks. They got a lot of traffic, and the puck was bouncing. But like you said, with Josh Cote, I think you said it at the rink that night, but his ability to track a puck in traffic is, it's maybe second to none. And he did a great job with that. It was a bouncy puck. It was bouncing all over the place.
It was bouncing all night.
And
it was interesting.
Yeah.
It was, and I think that's why, we were talking with Nick Nielsen. He was saying after game 3 that game was probably the worst game of the series. And I was like, you know what? It was a good game. It was entertaining, and I fully enjoyed it. Yeah. From a back and forth perspective. But, there were times where it was a bit, I don't want to say sloppy, but it was the puck was bouncing.
It felt bouncy. Yeah,
very bouncy.
All night. Wasn't even just at the end of the game too. So I don't know what was going on there. We won't speculate too much about what the bouncy puck was all about.
Anyways, but it's unfortunate for Weyburn coming back home tied 1-1, and obviously have a lot of momentum, and I think people were very excited. And you also have to give kudos to Battleford. They're proving why they were the top team in the regular season, and now we'll see how Weyburn responds come Friday night at the Access Communications Center in Battleford. And you know what? Good news if you're a Wings fan. They were able to beat Battleford's once there. Yeah. And not many teams have beaten Battleford at the Access Communications Center. So if they can easily do it again and force a Game 6 back in Weyburn on Sunday. All right, let's move on to Humboldt and Nipawin. Humboldt, we talked about it on Monday on SJHL Weekly. 2 dominant wins in Humboldt for the Broncos. And then the Nipawin Hawks come back home. They get off to a really good start Tuesday. They hold off the Broncos, get a 4-3 win to get to within 2-1. And then last night, unfortunately for the Hawks, they got up 2-0. And, the league kind of slipped through their fingers, and Humboldt scored 4 unanswered goals. And they pick up a 4-2 win, and now they're on the verge, 1 win away from the second round of the playoffs. Yeah, it seemed like Nipawin obviously loved the home cooking coming back, because they definitely played a lot better. They played a lot better. Humboldt got all 3 of their goals on Tuesday night on the power play. And then the next night, Nipawin did a much better job in the power play. But, one of the things that I've always said, and I think we've talked about this in the past, you and I, Jeromy, is if you score a goal in the first minute or the last minute of a period,
it boosts your team so much. Correct. Going into the locker room having just scored, or coming onto the ice and just scoring.
It's a tone setter.
It sets a tone. And with Tim Kim, he scored 28 seconds into the third period to kind of kick off that third period, which turned into all Humboldt, like you said, kind of. So that's on the Wednesday night game, of course. And Humboldt's that team. I think they're a very complete, balanced team. So if you can get a little bit of momentum, it seems like the waves start coming. And Nipawin did a great job on Tuesday, and then just unfortunately they kind of let that third period slip away from them on the Wednesday night game. And
I wanted to find the tweet, but I'm gonna paraphrase it because I can't find it. Our colleague on SJHL Weekly, Rory McGoran, tweeted out this morning, Thursday morning, that it only took 4 games for every member of the Humboldt Broncos to have a single point. In the playoffs. And that speaks to, we've talked about it, obviously Balford was the first place team in the SJHL this season, but the argument can be for the second place Broncos, they might be the deepest team in the SJHL. And I mean, that's a prime example when you have every player on your team can have a point, after just 4 games, which is crazy to think about. But anyways, game 5 will be back in Humboldt Friday night at the EPA. And I mean, we saw how dominant they were in the first two wins. We'll see if they can do it again.
And just on Humboldt too, they're getting one of the biggest, concerns isn't the right word, but question marks, let's say, about the Broncos was, which goalie's going to run with it, who's going to have the better numbers. So far, Motiu and Picklick, 150 and 250 goals against accordingly, respectively, and a 948 and a 934 save percentage for the two of them. So the goaltending has been pretty solid through 4 games. Never hurts.
And it's been solid ever since they picked up Jared Picklick.
Absolutely.
Ever since they had Jared Picklick, they've been alternating from January, February, and March. If they ain't broke, don't fix it.
Seems to work.
That's the old saying, right? Moving on. Getting into so those are the 2 series that are currently 3-1 in the SJHL playoffs presented by UPL. Moving on to the next series, which is the rematch, of course, of last year's final between Flin Flon and Estevan. It was 2-0 Flin Flon after 2 wins up at the Whitney Forum. Estevan returns home. Huge comeback win on Tuesday. Down 3-1 third period. They get the 2 tying goals. They went in overtime. And then last night, they did a really good job of keeping Flin Flon to the outside. The Bombers didn't have much when it comes to scoring opportunities, and they won 3-0. And now the series is all tied up at 2. Back to Flin Flon, game 5. And this series is looking very eerily similar to last year's final.
Yeah, and it's just so funny because we were kind of scoreboard watching while we were in Weyburn on Tuesday. And that game we were kind of keeping an eye on just because, you were heading there the next night.
Sure. And, didn't know if it was going to be 2-1 or 3-0.
Exactly. Yeah. So we were kind of keeping an eye on that one. And it was 3-1, in the third. And we were like, oh, man, maybe Flin Flon's got this one. And then it just kept 3-2, 3-3. And then we got to check out overtime while we were waiting for all the games to kind of end that night.
Yeah, we were watching it on Hockey TV, where you can get your subscription right now for $29.99. No better time than right now in the SJHL playoffs to get your subscription to Hockey TV. So get it now, and you can get all the playoffs covered as well as the Centennial Cup.
Talk about a plug. Great.
I've been doing it all week with all the interviews and everything I've been doing. Got pretty good at it,
Nailed it. But yeah, no, so we were watching that, and then we got to watch the overtime, and Owen Barrow had a big night, 2 goals that night.
The crazy thing about that play, and I was talking with Bombers assistant coach Cole McCaig about it, it's interesting. And he was even saying, when he was talking to me about it, is that overtime period, it was very, what an overtime period. It was very back and forth. Each team would hem each other in the offensive zone for about a minute or so. And I mean, even you look at that highlight, if you go back and watch the highlights on the SJHL YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe today. You can see the Flin Flon Bombers had a glorious scoring chance to potentially end the game in game 3. Cam Herdlicka made an outstanding stop. Bruins pick up the puck, come back on a 2-on-1, and they score. And that how many times have we seen that in overtime?
It's name of the game.
Chance at one end, don't score, comes back the other way.
Yeah,
it's a goal.
It's the name of the game.
It is. And I mean, in a win like that, you're going to get a lot of momentum. And then you switch that into game 4 last night. And the first period of game 4 last night might have been the Bruins' best period of hockey in the postseason thus far.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the things that we talked about as well with the Bruins, I mean, they had shutout king Cam Hrdlicka, and how valuable he has been to their team all season long. 35 shots for Flin Flon, and it was a shutout. So, you know, as much I was watching the interview with Cam after the game that you did,
which you can find on the SJHL Twitter page.
SJHL Twitter.
Be sure to follow today.
Yeah, follow it. And you know, he basically said the guys did a great job of keeping it to the outside.
They did. Yeah.
We were really strong in front of our net, I think was a term that he used. Great power play. Like, they were able to shut down the power play. They had Flin Flon had 5 power plays that night.
Right.
And you know, so when you put all that together, that's a recipe for success any night. But the fact that Estevan was able to do that in Game 4 when they didn't want to go down 3-1 going back to the Whitney Forum, that's massive. And so shout out to Cam, shout out to the system that they were able to put in place that night, and maybe they'll be able to mimic that again on Friday in Game 5.
But now we go, so the series goes back to the Whitney Forum for Game 5, and obviously the Whitney Forum's been a very difficult place for the Estevan Bruins, obviously, the last 2 years. It's been a very, I mean, Affinity Place has been a difficult spot for the Flin Flon Bombers as well, but you know what I mean? But I think a big question mark, and I was talking with the voice of the Flin Flon Bombers during the second intermission on his broadcast last night, you know, one of the biggest question marks, and we knew it was going to be a question mark going into this series, is the health of the Flin Flon Bombers.
Right.
Last night, they got Jacob Vockler back. However, you didn't see him too much in the second half of that hockey game. I do believe, I'm just going to confirm right now, but I think Jaden Mercier left the game last night for a little bit of time as well. So the question is, are those guys going to be available for Game 5? And is Flin Flon going to be able to get other players that haven't played in this series back to the lineup? And my thought is, and it's the, I guess, the curiosity, I guess, of it all. You know, the series is 2-2, and now the question mark is, you know, obviously this isn't a do or die game, but obviously we've seen in the past with the urgency of the home ice advantage and these two teams, if some guys are close, do they make the jump into the lineup, or do you wait until it is a do or die game to potentially bring them back? Because there's a lot of good, talented players on the Flin Flon Bombers that are currently out of their lineup, and it's crazy to think about.
Some of their leading scores, most of their leading scores.
Like, there's like almost a quarter of their team.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
You know, I said this to Rob last night. I don't know if I've ever seen a team at the junior level in a situation like they're in, and you have to give credit to both the coaching staff of Mike Reagan and Cole McKaig. Like, down the stretch, they were still playing some really good hockey for the Flin Flon Bombers, despite all of their injuries. And I think if you're a Bombers fan, you're just hoping that, you know, some of those guys can return to the lineup and not only return to the lineup, but also be impactful players, because a lot of those guys that are missing are impactful players.
Well, yeah, like we look at Cole Dupereau, Jeromy Tremblay, I think, is another one.
Yep.
So like those two alone.
Zach Kane.
Zach Kane, thank you. He's number 3 on the list.
Yep.
I could have kept going.
Yep, there's a lot.
So like those are, and Zach Kane, obviously the prized acquisition of the trade deadline, if you want to call it that. And you know, they've been relying on scoring by committee, and that's not always easy when your top 3 scorers are out. I mean, you can do that to any team. Take any team and take their top 3 scorers out of the lineup. They're not going to have a great time most of the time. So, you know, it's a tough situation, and Flin Flon has already shown that they can win without 100%. Them, without those specific 3. Right. So, you know, Friday's going to be a wild one.
And the other thing I want to add on before we jump to the last series too is, big shout out, like the goalies in this series have been outstanding. We've talked about how good Cam Hrdlicka was last night, obviously with the 35 save shutout, but Harman Laser-Hume was outstanding as well. The Bruins were pressing in that first period, and Harman had to make some big saves, because if not, that game could have been a little bit more than a 2-0 deficit as well. So now the series shifts back up to Flin Flon for Game 5, and Oh, boy.
If I can give a quick shout out to our boy, David Wilberg.
Oh, yes.
He put out a very interesting tweet last night.
Yeah.
So his little,
editor for the Estevan.
I'll just read it word for word.
Okay.
Tonight's weird, obscure stat, dating back to a 2014 first-round series. The home team has won 13 straight games between the Estevan Bruins and the Flin Flon Bombers. I believe that's playoffs.
In the playoffs.
He didn't specify that, but he meant that. And this includes 2 Game 7s in 2014. 2 games in 2014, 7 games in last year's SJHL final, and 4 games this year. So, isn't that wild?
Yes.
How important for these two teams that home ice is. So, if Estevan's able to maybe sneak one, how big that would be on Friday night. So,
well, and my addition to that stat was who was on the radio that night to see the last road team win in that series in the playoffs. It was Rob Hart and yours truly,
Jeromy Corrigan.
So
there you go.
There's your fun fact.
There you go.
All right, final series.
How it all comes full circle.
Yeah,
everybody.
it really does. that proves how long it's been.
Yeah,
that honestly proves how long it's been.
It's crazy.
That was my first year doing play-by-play in Estevan.
Yeah,
it was 2013, 2014.
There you go.
Anyways, final series to talk about: Melfort and Larange. First and foremost, before we start talking about this series and game 3 and 4, big shout out to everyone up in Larange, to who everyone, by now everyone's probably seen what happened when it came to the rink situation at the Mel. And kudos to everyone involved, the Ice Wolves organization, the JRMCC, is that the proper acronym, at the other rink in Orange, for getting the facility ready in time so that both teams could still play Tuesday night and transitioning over from the rink. So it was a bit of a delayed start. And a big shout out to the Larange Ice Wolves for, unfortunately, Hockey TV wasn't available both nights. So what did they do? Put the game on the Facebook page.
Loved it.
It was great to see. And, shout out to everybody involved for, that's a very tight turnaround, obviously.
Yes.
For a game that was supposed to be at 7:30. So I wanted to give a shout out to everybody involved for making that happen. I want to give a shout out also to our good friend Matty Barrett, who had to call game 3 on a cell phone. I think every play-by-play guy who's ever called the game has had to do that at least once. So Matt, congratulations on calling.
Yeah, it just happened to be game 3 of the playoffs.
Just had to be game 3 of the playoffs. So congratulations to Matt, and good job on facing some adversity, adjusting.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this series,
it's everything we wanted it to be. It's played out exactly like we thought it was.
It has played out exactly how we wanted it to be. We knew it was going to be low scoring. We knew it was going to be tight. We knew it was going to be physical. We knew both goalies were going to be outstanding. And that's exactly what we've gotten. Yeah. Tuesday, we got our second overtime game. This time, Walker Jeromy playing hero for the Larange Ice Wolves to give them a 2-1 series lead. And then last night, Joel Favreau standing on his head, stopping 29 of 30 saves. Melfort wins 3-1, and they're going back to the Northern Lights Palace on Friday for game 5, series tied up at 2. And each team has won once at home, and each team has won once on the road. And honestly, this series is a coin flip right now. It really is. I mean, you couldn't ask for a more even series.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too, that, going into this matchup, we had talked about how home ice advantage was going to be so important. This was a couple weeks before the playoffs. Then they go on that last little stretch of the regular season where they played each other a bunch of times, and the road team won a bunch of those games. And now it's it's road team, home team, road team, home team, or some formula, some combination along those lines. It's awesome to see that
they're just alternating wins.
They're alternating wins, and it's also awesome to see just how tight this matchup is, because the numbers all indicated that it would be as neck and neck as you could possibly get. Their goals for was essentially the same. Their goals against was essentially the same. Their special teams were pretty close. Like, everything about these teams was close this year. So the fact that we've seen a 3-1 game, 3-2, 4-3 in overtime, and 3-1, that doesn't surprise me at all. And it's such exciting hockey, because like we kind of said about the Weyburn game the other night, it seems like every shot is exciting. Every hit is, pushing the momentum one way or the other.
Right.
And it's just been a great series so far. So get your tickets now, or your Hockey TV subscription, because Friday night's going to be electric.
Yeah, if you're up in the northern part of the province, Game 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Whether you're close to Melfort on Friday for Game 5 or close to La Ronge for Sunday in Game 6. You mentioned the goals for and the goals against in the regular season. It's 10-10 in the playoffs.
Yeah, right.
It's 10-10.
Isn't that wild?
Both teams have won a game 3-1, and both teams have won a game by 1 in overtime. So there you go.
Crazy.
So it's 10-10. Like I mentioned, Game 5 for that series is set for Friday night. Game 6 is set for Sunday at in La Ronge. Note the start time, though, if you are going to that game. It is a 5 o'clock puck drop. And worth mentioning, just to go back to Flin Flon and Estevan, Game 6, obviously that series is confirmed because it's 2-2. Game 6 will be back in Estevan with puck drop set for 7 o'clock. So we'll preview all the Game 5s and even the Game 6s coming up in a little bit. But we are now going to throw it to my interview with one of the many great officials in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, Alex Clarke, to get her thoughts on the season, her journey as an official. And of course, our official interviews are presented by our great sponsor here at the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, Federated Co-op. So enjoy this chat that I had earlier this week with Alex Clarke.
Well, first and foremost, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it. The one question I always like to start with when talking to an official or referee is the journey of getting started as an official. How did that kind of come about for you when it became to, getting your start officiating?
Yeah, so I think I kind of have two different starting points in my life, because I reffed for a little bit when I was younger and then took a break and then got back into it. But more or less, I played hockey in a really small town called Drake growing up, which is where I lived. And in Drake, which is a town of only a couple hundred people, there's not really many opportunities for employment as a young kid. And there's not very many officials who want to be on the ice. So kind of going hand in hand, as somebody who played hockey, I started reffing at that point in time. And then I moved away from home to play competitively as I got older, quit for a few years to focus on playing. And then when I graduated college and moved back into Saskatchewan, that was kind of when I was looking how to get back involved in the game again, from a non-playing standpoint. And that was when I took up officiating, as I was deciding between coaching and reffing. And for me, officiating just fit my personality so much better. I like to be active and on the ice. I wanted to build my own schedule, and I got paid to ref, which was something I would have paid to do probably.
Yeah, no doubt about it. When you're officiating, when you return to officiating after your college hockey career, maybe talk about from that time and working your way up kind of in the levels of hockey and how that journey was, because kind of just like it is for a hockey player, for an official, it's also a grind to start at the lower levels and work your way up.
Yeah. So when I started back, I really had no idea the pathways that existed on the officiating side. I started back just to stay involved in the game, to make a little bit of side money, to be active. And I started with a lot of like the house level U15 teams, worked up into some female AAA at the U18 level and some U15 AA boys at that year. And actually my timing worked out really perfectly. I think I was quite fortunate that I went to SO Cup in Weyburn, because it was hosted in Saskatchewan that spring of my first year back officiating. And then it kind of skyballed. But people ask all the time how officiating works. And I think it's so similar to playing in that you get supervised and evaluated, and you get your name put forward for first provincial assignments, then national assignments, then international assignments. And that's pretty much how you work your way up. It's really working one level to the next, to the next, to the next, until you either flatline or kind of reach your peak and decide that you're done.
For sure. And you've definitely, since that time of returning, you've definitely moved up. You've had so many incredible accomplishments. multiple international events you've officiated at, U Sport, of course, SJHL, the first linesperson in the WHL. When it comes to all these things you've been able to accomplish, I guess what stands out for you when you look back so far on your officiating career?
I think just how much it evolved from where I started and where I never anticipated it going.
Okay.
I never expected to be an official at the Olympics when I first started officiating. I didn't even really think that the officials competed to go to the Olympics, right? You just don't have a concept when you don't think about it. And then to break barriers and be alongside other women who are breaking barriers was really exciting. And just thinking of the things that I've accomplished and we've accomplished as officials in the 7-8 years that I've been back in the officiating world.
When it comes to, some of the things you've been able to accomplish in your officiating career, when it comes to things that you're hoping to accomplish, what are some goals that you have for yourself, I guess, in the coming years or the future?
So going forward, I'm coming off of a couple really high years, and it's going to be really hard to top that. So goal setting looks a little different for me right now than it probably did the last 4 years building up to Beijing. But right now I do have my sights set on going back to Milano in 2026 as a linesperson. And then kind of in between now and then, I really want to focus on doing a good job of the levels that I'm working in the Western League and the American League. Last year was a whirlwind of a season with the Olympics and COVID and everything going on, that breaking into those leagues, I don't feel like I gave my best foot forward. And then this season has had I've tapered off a little bit earlier this season than I normally would. And so next season and kind of the next 3 years up to Milano, I'm focused on performing well and doing a service to the leagues that I'm working in.
For sure. Obviously, some play in Saskatchewan, some leagues have already started some playoffs. The SJHL playoffs kick off this coming weekend, WHL a couple of weeks away. I want to ask you as an official, how does the game change for you? Obviously, the intensity on the ice picks up, but how difficult is it, I guess, to obviously do your job as an official as the games pick up the intensity come playoff time?
Yeah. So, I mean, with increased intensity comes increased demand for us as officials to be on our game as well, right? There's whether you're a linesperson and you have to be at hot spots faster to help manage the game, or whether you're a referee and you have to be sharper in your calls because they matter just that much more. Like we have to push ourselves to keep up mentally and physically to the game because it escalates as soon as playoffs hit. There's a lot more on the line. Teams are competing for a lot more, and we kind of have to match that same level of intensity.
For sure. Final question for you, Alex. And I asked Ty the exact same question to conclude the interview, so I'm going to ask you this. What's some advice that you might have for some, younger hockey players that maybe they want to get into officiating and they see someone like you who's worked their way up and, being able to officiate at these high levels and high international events? What's some advice that you might have for young officials so that they can kind of aspire to be one day potentially?
My favorite advice that I think I would give to younger officials or younger players or athletes in general is just to make sure that you enjoy the process and the journey along the way, because you can work really, really hard and never accomplish the goals that you have. But if you love every step of the process and every step of the journey, then it's still success in the end. Whereas you might hate every step of it. And when you accomplish something, you still might not be happy. So just really making sure that you're in love with what you're doing, enjoying it throughout. And that's going to keep you motivated to keep going and keep aspiring to reach those goals.
For sure. Awesome, Alex. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it as always, and keep up the phenomenal work. And we look forward to following your journey in the officiating world. And obviously, we'll see you around the rink.
Yeah, gladly. I will see you around the rink.
So a really good chat with Alex Clarke there. And of course, all our chats with our officials are sponsored by Federated Co-op. A big shout out to them, and a big shout out to Alex, who has had an amazing officiating career. And you know, it's early on in her career as well. So lots of great things coming down the pipe for Alex as well. All right, time to preview this Friday night, all 4 series, game 5. Two of them are tied at 2. 2 of the series, 3-1. Clarke, I guess when you look at what are your expectations, I guess, for Friday night?
Well, there's going to be a couple teams that are desperate for their lives at this point now. So we haven't really seen that yet in the series in terms of being in a do or die situation like you were kind of talking about. So with Nipawin and Weyburn kind of with their backs against the wall here, what version of those teams are we going to see?
Correct.
And will the Humboldt and Battlefords of the world have that killer instinct to put the series away, or is it going to keep going? So that's what I think, to me, that's kind of the headliner for especially for those 2 games.
For those 2 games, I'd 100% agree with you.
For the other series, it's going to be, well, for the LaRange-Melfort one, we just talked about how flip-floppy it was in terms of, you know, home team hasn't been able to solidify 2 wins yet.
Sure.
The road teams have both split. Both of them
teams have proven they can win on the road.
Exactly. So that one's kind of a wild card.
And we said that before the playoffs.
Yeah.
We didn't think, you know, we were talking about who would get home ice advantage between these 2 teams. And, you know, near the end, it was kind of like, you know what, I don't know if home ice advantage is going to be as big of an advantage as all of us were talking about, because the last 3 times they played in the regular season, the road team won.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously you want, if it goes to a game 7, of course you want it to be on your home ice. There is an advantage of playing on your home ice because you get the majority of your home fans, and you also get last change.
Yep.
And in a series where it's been as tight as this has been, you probably want last change. So
doesn't hurt.
Exactly. So it's a good advantage, obviously, for Melfort if it goes to a do or die.
Right. Exactly. So that's the Friday night storyline for that series is just going to be, will the home team prevail, or is it going to turn into a situation where LaRange is up 3-2 going back for game 6? So that's a very, very, it's going to be a tight one. Like, there's going to be no space on the ice in that game. Everyone's going to be fighting for every inch, because that's a very important, it's kind of one of those pivotal games, those pivot games that could make the series go either way.
When it's 2-2, a series is 2-2. Game 5 is a pivotal game.
It's a pivotal game.
That's a pretty easy statement.
You're welcome.
I mean, I think it's something along the lines of like teams that win game 5 in a 2-2 series. It's like you win the series 78% of the time.
It's a huge boost. Absolutely.
Something like that.
And then with the Estevan Flin Flon series, it goes, a road team hasn't won yet. So will we see the first one? And that's going to be the biggest thing on Friday for me, is watching that one and kind of keeping an eye on if Estevan's finally going to be able to break that wall that they've been, just the Whitney Forum. It's so mythical.
You have to think that one of these teams is going to win on the road.
Yeah. It didn't happen last year.
I know it didn't.
But you know, if Estevan has any hope of getting into, they need to be able to.
Well, they have to.
Exactly.
Flin Flon knew going into this series they didn't even have to. They could go down to Affinity Place and lose every game. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Same with Estevan last year, right? So, I mean, there's plenty of storylines going into
every game has a really interesting and unique storyline.
Sure. Yeah, like I liked your points on the 2 series that are 3-1.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see how Weyburn and Nipawin respond with their seasons on the line. And same with Battleford and Humboldt. Like, let's see if they can have that killer instinct to end the series. The 4th game of a series is also always very difficult. I mean, Nipawin's proven the last 2 games, like they can skate with the Humboldt Broncos. Now, the question is, can you get into the EPA and get a result and force a game 6 back at the cage? And you know, for Weyburn, you know, they have the confidence that they have beaten the Battlefords North Stars at the Access Communications Center.
Yeah.
And if they get solid goaltending from Dazza Mitchell, there's no reason why that series can't be going back to Weyburn for game 6 at the CPP. When it comes to Flin Flon and Estevan, I mean, like you said, are we going to see Estevan finally break through on the road? Or is this trend of home teams winning, you know, each time going to happen? I think, you know, usually we see if it's 2-2 in this series, I think you're going to see, I'm going to fast forward a little bit to game 6. Whoever wins that game 5, I think is going to have I think they're going to have a really strong sense of urgency because you think they don't want to go back all the way, do that road trip all the way again. Now remember how long this road trip is.
Yeah.
For a game 7.
Yeah. It's literally the farthest distance in the league. You have
to, because you got to remember, the thing is, if it goes to a game 7,
yeah,
that would be played on Tuesday.
Right.
The next series would then start on Friday.
Yeah.
Got to have some gas in the tank. And I think that's big, going back to Battleford and Humboldt. It's huge for them. If they can close out the series on Friday, you're going to get a week off. You're going to get some rest.
Yeah.
Rest,
I don't know if there's
some bruises, everything like that.
I don't know if there's another team in this league right now that could use a few extra days off than a team like Flin Flon.
Well, I mean, you know what? Exactly. I bet, it's playoffs. You can take the rest you can get, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then, like you said, Melfort and Larange. I mean, I've been saying it. I was at game 2, and if the whole series has been like game 2, it's been fast, it's been physical, there hasn't been much. Both goalies have been outstanding.
Oh my gosh.
It seems like they're just kind of going back and forth with having outstanding goaltending performances. And for me, it's just it's the biggest coin flip right now in the SJHL playoffs. But it just makes for great hockey. And it's like I said earlier, I think it's great to see that this year in the SJHL, there was obviously no sweeps in the first round.
Yeah.
It's great to see that all 4 series are going into Friday, and we're seeing, just more games in general in the SJHL playoffs presented by UPL. So lots of great action on Friday. We already got a couple of game 6s set for Sunday. Will there be more? Stay tuned.
Hashtag.
Stay tuned.
Hashtag stay tuned.
Big shout out again to all of our sponsors here in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. Of course, the SJHL playoffs are presented by UPL. But also a big shout out to Cantera Seed, SaskTel, Capital Auto Mall, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Chevrolet Tourism Saskatchewan, Direct West, SGI, SGEU, Great Western Young's Equipment, RBC, Federated Co-op for our interview with Alex Clarke. Great interview with Alex Clarke. So big shout out to all of our sponsors. Because without your support, these shows and everything we do here at the SJHL would not be possible. We also have to talk about, because I do believe we're a month away from ticket sales closing for the SJHL raffle, where you could potentially win a brand new side-by-side courtesy of the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. Ticket sales end next month, and then we are going to be giving away a brand new Polaris side-by-side courtesy of the SJHL on April 27th on a live edition of this show at the Polaris dealership. Woo-hoo. And it might be, the craziest thing is, depending on how the schedule lines up, TBD, but I've kind of mapped it out a little bit. It could be in between game 6 and 7 potentially of the SJHL final. So it might get really hectic, but we'll see.
Might get a little hectic.
It may. Regardless, you can get your tickets today, sjhlraffle.ca. 1 for $25, 3 for $60, 10 for $100. Get your tickets today. Only 5,000 available. And ticket sales are until April 23rd, I do believe. 23rd.
Yeah, I think we're a month away.
April 23rd. Yeah. There you go. 1 month.
Directly a month.
You got 1 month. So if you've been waiting, no time like the present to get your tickets.
There's a lot of people in this province that sometimes wait till the last minute, but don't.
You know what? Saskatchewan is a very last minute province.
Kind of
very
a last
minute.
But just don't.
Get your tickets today.
Get them now.
SJHLraffle.ca. It's going to be a good time. Be sure to stay up to date with everything in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League on the road to the Cantera Seeds Cup as part of the 2023 SJHL playoffs presented by UPL by following us across social media. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're over 800 subscribers now.
I saw that. We clicked over 800.
Let's get to 1,000. Let's get to 1,000 by the end of the playoffs.
Do it.
All you got to do, if you aren't familiar with YouTube, you can go to YouTube, sign in with your Gmail account. Just type in SJHL in the search bar, click it, find the account, hit subscribe. That's all you got to do. Yeah. Subscribing's free. It's like following. Anyways, you might not think, I got to make a YouTube account. You got to sign in with your Gmail. That's it.
If
it's as easy as that.
If you really wanted to make more than one account, you could do that too.
You could.
You could if you really wanted to. Just more than one account.
Wow, that's great advice. I mean, you could. Yeah, you could make multiple accounts and follow the SJHL.
I'll take it.
Yeah,
they don't ask how, they ask how many.
Right. Yeah, but be sure to stay up to date across our social media. Of course, you may have noticed I'm out and about on the road.
You've been everywhere, man. You've been
something
everywhere.
Like
You're getting there. You haven't been everywhere yet,
no,
but you're getting there.
I've already been to 4 rinks.
Yeah,
4 games. Yeah, we'll be in Melfort tomorrow for Game 5 between the Laurent Ice Wolves and the Melfort Mustangs, and then I will be down in Estevan for Game 6 between the Bombers and the Bruins. And of course, if you pay attention to our social media, you may have noticed we have pregame and postgame reports each and every night of the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League playoffs presented by UPL. Thanks to our good friends at Sask Milk for sponsoring those videos. Be sure to like, share, retweet,
all of the buttons,
all of that on the post-game and pre-game reports as well. But be sure to just follow us across all of our social medias to stay up to date in the SJHL playoffs, because we are on the road to the Cantera Seeds Cup. We got 4 Game 5s Friday night in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. Please try to make it out to your local rink. Support these teams. It's been great hockey so far. If you can't make it out to the rink, be sure to get your Hockey TV subscription, $29.99 a month. And you can watch all of the SJHL playoffs on the road to the Cantera Seeds Cup. And then also, I do believe, the Centennial Cup as well. So be sure to get your Hockey TV subscription if you can't make it out to your local rink. And if not, don't worry, we got you covered. We have highlights, recaps, all that fun stuff across our social media. Going into this weekend, where we guarantee have 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
We have guarantee of 6 games between Friday and Sunday right now.
Could be 7.
Could be 8.
Could be 8.
TBD.
Hashtag stay tuned.
Hashtag stay tuned. Yes, it's going to be another busy weekend in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League in the playoffs. But we can't wait. And we'll see who punches their ticket to the second round of the postseason, potentially this weekend. And if not, we'll see if we get some Game 7s set for Tuesday night.
Who doesn't like a Game 7? Find me somebody.
I don't know. Producer Jordan.
He doesn't like Game 7s?
He doesn't like Game 7.
Jordan?
He likes a good old sweep.
Get out of there early.
Maybe. But this is exciting.
Yeah.
We're into Game 5, 6s, and 7s across the board in the SJHL playoffs. It's very exciting. And Clarke kind of said it best. Stay tuned. A lot of great stuff coming your way in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. For Clarke Munroe, my name is Jeromy Corrigan. This has been another great episode of SJHL Insider. And most importantly, enjoy the games this weekend, everyone.